With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
What is happening, everybody? I'm Larry Roberts.
And I'm Sarah Lucy, and this is Brandon, your comprehensive guide to creative branding.
And on this episode of the podcast, we have an amazing guest with us. We've known this gentleman now for several years, and he's always been super, super helpful when it comes to understanding our rights as content creators, as brand creators. And I've seen him speak on multiple stages. Sarah's been there as well. We've both interacted with him. We've gone to dinner with him. We've hung out with him, and he's actually become a pretty good friend as well. So it's our honor and pleasure to welcome Gordon Firemark to the show. Gordon, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Larry, Sarah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Love the show, and I'm excited to be a guest on it. So
that's
May
awesome.
I just say this is the award-winning Gordon Firemark.
Yes, I was in Sarah's home territory last week to receive an award from the Texas Entertainment Entertainment and Sports Law Association, and that was nice. And it was nice to see you, Sarah, there. And yeah, it's exciting stuff. So thanks.
So Gordon, that's what you specialize in, is entertainment law, and you've been doing it now for what, over 30 years, I think, longer than Sarah's been alive. Is that the case?
That is correct. Wow, that makes me feel old.
Yeah. Don't feel bad. I've been doing a lot of things longer than Sarah's been alive too. So I'm right there with you, brother. But I love what you bring to the table. And, you know, when we talk about building brands and building content, and basically what we're doing is we're building IP or intellectual property. Yeah. And a lot of times we have a very difficult time establishing ownership or copyrights or trademarks for this intellectual property that we put a lot of time, energy, effort, money into. And that's where you come into play. So if you wouldn't mind, kind of lay the framework for us there, how you got into this, and give us some highlights of your time in the industry.
Well, as you said, I do entertainment and media law, and my mission in life, if you will, is to help creators to get their messages out and achieve the kind of impact and influence they desire, and do it safely and without fear of getting sued and so on. So that usually means setting up some various kinds of protections to let them have the confidence so they can go out and be bold with what they're doing and really make that impact. I've been, as you said, practicing entertainment and media law for about a little over 30 years now. And I got into the field because I had a passion for live theater as a kid. I got exposed to that very, very young. And then in college, I pivoted into radio, television, and film. So I've been helping those kind of creators my whole career. And the decision to go to law school sort of came when, in the late 80s, the Writers Guild went on a long strike. We were just coming off of a long strike this last summer.
Yeah.
And so, deja vu all over again for me. But that's what led me to go to law school and become an attorney. And I think that really uses my talents on understanding the creative mindset, but also being able to translate business and legal speak into a language that those folks understand.
With our show being all about personal branding, what I really wanted to hear from you is, do we need to trademark our brand names? Like, how much legal nonsense do we need to pull in? I'm sorry, it's kind of nonsense to me because I understand none of it. But how much legal stuff do we need to actually consider when we do launch a brand or launch a podcast, like all of the stuff that we've been doing?
Well, this is a matter of some debate in the podcasting community in particular, and I guess I should back up and give a little history, a little background on different kinds of intellectual property law that's in place. There's patent law, which covers inventions, technologies, and systems and processes and things like that if they're unique, and you get some protection for about 20 years before it becomes part of the public domain that anybody's allowed to use. Copyright protects the content itself, the body of an episode, the music, a song, a poem, a screenplay, a film, those kinds of things. So we have copyright from the moment we create a podcast episode or something like that. If somebody copies the actual content, substantially similar content, that could be a copyright infringement. But when we talk about brands, brand is a sort of another word, almost a synonym for trademark. It's a distinctive mark or symbol or word or phrase that is used to identify goods or services in commerce and connect them to the source. Which company or maker is responsible for this product? It's exactly what a brand does. Now, in podcasting, a lot of folks say, well, make the title of your show something that tells everybody exactly what you're going to get when you listen to the show. My own show, Entertainment Law Update, is a great example of this.
What's that show about?
Yeah, right. What?
No.
Something about entertainment. It's a very descriptive term. Now, descriptive terms aren't normally protectable as trademarks under U.S. federal registration trademark law until it's acquired a kind of distinctiveness, which takes a number of years to build up, where the audience connects, has a secondary meaning, connects the dots for that. So my advice is pick a distinctive name that maybe evokes or suggests what the show is about, but use the subtitle, use the description fields to really tell the audience what they're going to get. And, the question is, well, does that affect podcast discoverability and those kinds of things? So back to your question, Sarah, should you take steps to protect a trademark? I think absolutely. If you have a distinctive name, something that can be registered for trademark protection in the US, I say register it so that other folks don't come in and adopt identical or very similar, confusingly similar titles for the show. I have clients that almost not a week goes by where someone doesn't adopt a title that's the same or similar to their client, to my client's podcast titles, and we send them a quick note, and usually it's pretty congenial. Hey, I'm sure you didn't realize, but you gotta change the name of your show, and most of the time they do.
Nice little cease and desist letter.
I may have received a couple of those over the course of my career. Yeah, those are always fun.
I always advise the clients, yes, you can hire me to have me write a lawyer, and it comes from a law offices of letterhead and all that, and it's very intimidating. And most of the time, that is using an A-bomb to do something you could have just shot a BB gun at. So I usually recommend first contact, make it yourself. Reach out to them and just tell them, I have a trademark. Please change the name. Let's not have this go any further. And oftentimes that works. But by the time they come to me, usually it's a little bit of saber rattling that's necessary. So
when you say I have a trademark,
mhm.
that means you've actually had to register it. So if you haven't registered it and someone else takes it, then you can't really.
Yeah, great question. Registration is a strong position to have, but having adopted a particular distinctive brand and used it in commerce for a while, you acquire common law trademark rights as well. And so it isn't always absolutely necessary to register a trademark, but the registration gives you a broader scope of protection and covers you at a federal level here in the U.S. And you can register in other countries as well. But that would mean nobody else in the U.S. could use that brand, or nobody else could. The podcast directories would take down a listing for an infringing title, which wouldn't happen.
Is that cost effective though? I mean, is that something that most of your independent creators are going to want to incur the expense of in order to do that?
There is an expense associated with it. It could cost you a couple of $1,000 to register a trademark in the two classes that we recommend for podcasts. That's the other thing, is that trademarks are registered in classes of goods depending on what you're selling. So if you wanted to call your chewing gum Double Mint, you're going to be out of luck. But if you wanted to call a medical device Double Mint, you might be able to do it. Wrigley's isn't going to have much to say about that. So can't imagine what medical device would be, but there you go.
I've got some ideas, but they're not appropriate for this audience. So we'll leave it alone.
So is it cost effective? I would say that at the point when you're starting to get serious about what you're doing as a business, and it's no longer just a hobby, and you sort of wouldn't care if someone else was sort of competing that way. Yeah, I think it's a good step to take if you can afford it. It isn't a high priority. If it's a matter of feeding your kids ramen noodles for the next week to make it work, that I wouldn't make the big investment there. But it's the kind of thing you should allocate some budget for at some point and plan for. Yeah.
So you've mentioned patents and you've mentioned trademarks, but we often hear about copyrights, and a lot of times I hear some confusion. And if I'm being honest, I get a little confused in the differentiation between copyright and trademark. Can you kind of break that down for us?
Okay. Yeah. So trademark is the protection for the brand, the title of a show, the brand, the name of a product, or something like that. And it protects these distinctive symbols, words, phrases, and those kinds of things. Copyright is really about protecting expression of ideas. So if I sit down and write a script or a song or a poem, or I sculpt something into stone, that particular creative effort gets protected under copyright law. And copyright law, the protection exists from the moment the work is created. So every episode we create, every script we write, every piece of artwork we generate for our show, those kinds of things, if it wasn't AI generated, Larry, is entitled to copyright
that's coming.
protection.
That question is on deck, so brace yourself.
Yeah, so you get copyright protection sort of automatically, and there is a registration system in the US as well. That's a good idea, but it's not nearly as important or critical as it might be in the trademark space.
Gotcha.
Before Larry brings in AI and then I sit back and just don't say words, I am really curious with a brand name, like not necessarily have to do with a podcast, just a brand name in general. If you get it as an LLC, do you also want to get it like registered as a trademark or stuff, or does the LLC give you that legal protection the same way a trademark would?
So the LLC name doesn't give you the kind of protection that you're talking about here. I mean, if the company name is itself a very distinctive name, like Xerox, for example, or something like that, that doesn't have any other meaning in the world, then it's pretty powerful and it becomes that common law kind of protection. But, it's possible to register a company name in, say, California, and another company register in Nebraska and another one in New Hampshire. And so which of those then has the exclusive right to use that in commerce? So also company names aren't usually the product name as well. So no, they're not the same thing. The trademark registration is something else you want to think hard about.
Along that same line of thinking, Sarah brought up an LLC. A lot of people will establish their podcast also as a sole proprietorship or just a DBA.
Yeah.
What sort of protections are you looking at between the two? Is there any benefit to going ahead and taking it and forming an LLC for your podcast, or is a sole proprietorship / DBA sufficient enough to protect your at least the name of the show and some of the other associated IP?
Well, no self-respecting lawyer would ever do an interview without at least uttering the words, "It depends," once. So, and this one really does. I mean, if you are just in it as a hobby and you don't expect to be doing a lot of, business stuff, generating revenue and those kinds of things, it may be okay to stay a sole proprietor or a partnership. Was what happens when two people just get together and don't take any affirmative legal steps to establish the business with, in the government's eyes. Forming an LLC or a corporation is a really good idea because it affords a kind of protection against liability. And LLC stands for limited liability company. In a sole proprietorship or a partnership, the owners of the business are responsible for everything that happens in the business. Profits, losses, liabilities. Somebody comes into the studio, slips and falls and breaks their neck, you or your personal assets are going to be held responsible for that if you're a sole proprietor or a partnership. And an LLC can sort of set up a shield against certain kinds of those liabilities, as long as you're doing things by the book. Other benefits of forming an LLC is it establishes a formal organizational structure, management and control structure of things. And it also allows you to raise capital by selling shares to investors and things like that. So lots of reasons that some people might do an LLC. The most important for most being that limitation of liability. If you have a lot of assets, personal assets that you want to protect, it's a pretty cost-effective line of defense against those kinds of things.
So when it comes to establishing an LLC, are there any benefits? Because I have some friends that have established LLCs and they just go to the state, they pay like, I don't know, $350, they get their LLC. But then Olaire, he hired an attorney, paid a couple grand, got a fancy little hardback folder to put it in and all this other fun stuff with a whole lot of documentation in there that I have no idea what it means. Are there benefits to going the lawyer route, or are you just as covered, and is it safe and secure to just file it directly with the state?
I would say if you know what you're doing, if you're comfortable with state government filings and reading all the fine print and things like that, then doing it yourself is an option. And in fact, I have an online program for podcasters where I teach them how to form their LLC, how to register their trademark, how to protect their copyrights and make the contracts with their team and all those kinds of things. And it's very do-it-yourselfable if you have a little guidance and instruction and access to the materials that you need. But a lot of people don't want to be do-it-yourselfers when it comes to the legal side. And so that's the advantage of using a lawyer is that sense of confidence of that it's been done right, and that we hand over a turnkey operation, as you said, Larry. So you didn't have to read through every line of that operating agreement for your LLC and make sure that covered you, because you go ahead. Sorry.
I was supposed to have read that.
Oh, Sarah, you knew I was talking about you. I wasn't talking about you directly. I just had heard that people. You did it through the state. I had no idea.
I got a lot of papers. They had a lot of words.
Yeah.
I read the headings and this is where you sign part.
If you're willing to trust whoever prepared those documents for you, and look, they were probably a lawyer. If your company is a plain vanilla, same as every
Gordon,
other
I think you're missing the point. Sarah just filed through the state for the $350, and I paid the two bills the two stacks for a lawyer. And she says that I overpaid because she always hates the fact that I spend money pretty freely, and she's trying to get me to tighten the wallet a little bit. Well, but I'm like, I don't feel comfortable doing it through the state. I want somebody to draw those papers up and give me those nice tabs that separate each section of the documentation. So I know what I'm looking at. Did you just
call me out in front of our podcast lawyer to not pay for a podcast lawyer?
No, okay. I didn't. I called myself out for spending money. No, I called myself out for not budgeting my money properly.
I never specifically said that one particular expenditure was bad. It's just all of them that you do are pretty bad.
There is a kind of mindset around spending that on professional assistance and other things that some people want to do it yourself. They want to save money and keep that belt kind of snug around the waist, and some people are willing to invest because they feel that the peace of mind that they're getting from it, or just the not having to think that much about things. And either way is fine. That's why I offer the done for you services, as well as the done with you and the done by you with instruction kind of levels of service in my product line. So
it's good to have multiple tiers of offerings in your services, Gordon.
Exactly.
Good job.
Exactly. Yeah. So back to the question. There are the other options too. There's the legal vending machine service, right? The ones that have words like Rocket and Zoom in their names.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I sort of, look, again, if you are exactly like every other business, then maybe that works. I sort of liken it to a vending machine. Would you get a haircut from a vending machine? Would you stick your head in a hole where it says haircut $1, put head here?
Sticking things in a hole and is a very different conversation.
Not appropriate for this.
Is it also in a gas station bathroom?
Well, maybe. Let's not go.
I'm staying away from that.
Yeah, we're staying away from that in the post edit as well. So,
well, the point being, you might get a really good haircut, or you might end up missing an ear. And I think that using those vending machine style online services, there's some risk.
Yeah.
And again, if you're a normal, everything's the same as everybody else. The problem is podcasters' media production isn't like most other businesses. And so I do think that there are some things that you want to custom tailor.
Yeah, I learned that you shouldn't use Google Docs templates to create your contracts that you send to clients and have signed. learned that one the hard way.
Well,
And now my attorney is rewriting them.
right. And I guarantee you pay more to have them rewritten than you would have to have them written in the first place to cover things.
He's my best friend's husband. I get it.
Well,
I don't think he's charging me this time.
Okay. Your best friend's paying the bill, basically.
Thanks, Kelly. I pay him in how much I spoil their daughter.
There you go.
I got to do it. You know it's coming when you're talking to me. We got to talk.
All right, y'all have fun.
All right, thanks for joining us today, Sarah. It's been great having you as a guest on Branded. But yeah, I got to ask because I've had some discussions. I've actually worked with a patent office here, not a patent office, but an attorney's office that specializes in IP here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. But It's been several months since we've had that discussion. So I'm wondering, what are some of the latest and greatest that you've heard in the realm of IP and AI generated content?
Well, this really is the bleeding edge of the law and technology right now. And it's sort of hard to say what the rules really are because it's going to change again every few months.
Sure.
Right now, the Copyright Office has held that unless it is generated by a human, it is not entitled to copyright protection. Mm-hmm. And this is actually, there's a long line of cases involving paintings created by an elephant.
The selfie taken by the monkey?
And the monkey selfie, exactly. And
the song written by the Holy Spirit. Someone tried to copyright that as well. So, true.
Yeah, so the same rule applies to machine-generated stuff. If it's not human, there's no copyright. And that has become a bit of an issue for creators that use AI as a tool in the making of their work. And the Copyright Office has come out with guidance on how you're supposed to file the registration and disclaim the AI-generated material. And a fellow who tried to register some AI-generated material and was rejected, he filed a lawsuit against the Copyright Office. That was just resolved against him in favor of the Copyright Office recently. And it's going to go up on appeal, and it'll take a couple of years before we know the outcome of that. Meanwhile, on the other side, we have a lot of litigation happening around the training data sets. And doesn't the machine have to sort of make copies of the material into its memory, if nothing else, in order to learn from it and so on? And so there are a number of authors that are suing because their books, if you ask for a detailed summary of the book, it'll spit it out exactly right, accurately.
Sure.
Well, how could it possibly have done that if it hadn't copied the book? That's one of the arguments. In the image side of things, Getty Images and a number of other stock photo agencies and those kinds of things, they're suing, saying, hey, you used our images of this to train the machine. So now that when you ask the machine for a picture of Darth Vader wearing a Spider-Man costume, it's getting into all kinds of copyright stuff there as well.
Sure.
So the output could be infringing, even though the work is new and original in a sense. We get into all kinds of weird issues there. Who do you sue when it's a machine that generated the thing? And there's also the music side, and we get into the AI generated songs. Remember last summer there was The Weeknd?
The Weeknd, yeah.
Yeah, and
I
Drake.
remember who he collabed with. Yeah, exactly. It was Weeknd and Drake.
It wasn't an actual collaboration. It was all generated by machine, and it ran on the radio, and it was published on Spotify for a while, and they eventually took it down after demands from, I think, both artists' management. But again, that raises other issues around what we call the right of privacy and right of publicity, the use of a person's name and likeness and sound of their voice and those kinds of things. So lots of gray in the areas right now, but we're watching and waiting to see what happens next.
It's interesting because it seems like the from a legal perspective, things are moving pretty slow in that arena. Because we've been in this position now for at least the last 6 to 8 months. That I've heard these stories, and the monkey story, and even the elephant painting, and Getty Images, and those suing Midjourney and some of these other larger application platforms. But I haven't heard of much progress on that front. So
that is sort of the nature of legal developments. Legislatures can act fairly quickly and make a law, but if people are suing, the process takes months and months and months or years. And then if you want to appeal, that's another year or more. And, by the time you get to the Supreme Court, there was a case that was just decided last summer, finally, that was 9 years of litigation to get to the Supreme Court. And it was a, copyright fair use case involving photos. And you might have heard about that Andy Warhol case. It went on for a long time, and spending millions and millions of dollars on legal fees to get there too. So
I would lose interest by then. I'd be like, you know what? It's been 5 years. I'm done. It's just whatever. There's no way. I'm too squirrely. But no, it's great. I appreciate you giving us that input. And you may or may not have an answer here. And if not, I totally understand. Do you see any implications from an IP perspective with the executive order that just came from the White House in regards to AI and AI development? Is there anything there that you might be aware of?
One of the areas that I talked about, that right of publicity, the name and likeness and sound of the voice thing, there is a section in the executive order that addresses that specifically, trying to sort of.
I'm sure whoever is listening to this says someone's got to be like me. What?
President Biden signed an executive order a week or two ago now.
It's been a couple weeks, yeah.
Yes, context. Thank you.
And it was mainly aimed at how are we going to manage the use of AI in government and protect privacy and protect confidentiality and classified material. And, there are concerns about national security if we're using software that was generated overseas by the Chinese or the Russian programmers or something like that. So lots of national security concerns, but they did address this question of creating a sort of federal level right of publicity for people's names and likenesses and sounds of voice.
I will say artificial intelligence in government is better than the zero intelligence we have currently in government.
There is an argument.
Hot take. Yeah. I don't know.
And that's about as political as we get on Branded. So not that I disagree in any way, shape, fashion, or form, but yeah. So, I appreciate that insight, Gordon. I know we got a little bit into the weeds there, Sarah. I appreciate you establishing that context for some of the listeners that may not be as in tune with the AI development space as I tend to be, and as I'm sure Gordon is to a certain degree as well. So, but I appreciate those insights.
Did he answer the question after I cut him off? I don't even know.
Yeah, he just used it. He did it in a different language. It was legal.
Okay, I didn't know. Yeah, okay.
Legal
sure.
AIEs was the language that we was using.
Okay.
But anyways, Gordon, you provided a lot of insight on a variety of different topics today, as far as how we can secure, our own intellectual property that we, again, put a lot of time and energy into to develop. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. If you would please give everybody an opportunity to reach out to you. Where's the best place to make contact and learn more about what you bring to the table as far as entertainment law goes?
Well, best place to look for me is gordonfiremark.com, where I have sort of a menu of my various offerings that we were talking about earlier. And that's a great way to find me. You can follow me on social media, gfiremark on almost everything, Gordon Firemark on Instagram, because something went wrong. And check out my YouTube channel. I do a weekly live stream podcast called Legit Podcast Pro, G Firemark on YouTube as well. And there's always Entertainment Law Update, the flagship podcast. So
awesome.
I was going to say that you should trademark a new legal term that's just the fire mark.
Oh,
there's actually an insurance company called the Firemark.
He knows.
Did they get all of the legal everything, or can you steal it?
No, I can still. I have some protection in place for my name and my catchphrase, the podcast lawyer.
No, now you should be just fire mark it.
Ooh, that's
come
clever.
On. We need to make this a verb.
That's pretty cool.
See, that's why you have conversations with brand consultants.
Exactly. Now, I did notice that you have an entire section on your website about the Firemark name. So,
yeah. Explaining what the noun Firemark means and where it comes from. And we don't know much about how our family ended up with it. We assume it was sort of generated for us at the immigration center when my great-great-grandpa came in from another country. So.
The original ChatGPT.
I was going to say it was AI generated when they migrated over. So, well, Gordon, man, once again, we really appreciate it. Hey, everybody, if you got some value out of this episode and you're ready to firemark your intellectual property, do us a favor, slam that subscribe button so we can continue to bring you this amazing content each and every week. And with that, I'm Larry Roberts.
I'm Sarah Losi. I'll talk to you next week.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.